Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast. Today, I am flying solo, and I'm going to be talking about when you strive to win accolades in this sport. And it's something that I think about a lot, certainly when I have guests on and we discuss how well they've done in the sport, how they view their own success. It's, of course, very thought-provoking for me. Now, if you listen to the podcast, you will understand that for me, it was quite a journey before I won my first show. And for those of you that aren't aware, it took me 5 years of competing before I won a show. And this 5 years, let me tell you, it was fruitful, but it was tough. It was very, very challenging. And when I actually entered my 2019 season, I had thoughts before and during that prep as to if I don't gain success through a placement, through an accolade, would I continue this journey as a competitive bodybuilder? Because for me, certainly, and it's a message that I try and share a lot, what you do in a bodybuilding prep and what you do in an off season, it's all consuming. It certainly is a lifestyle. And when we look at prep in particular, the extreme dieting, which is related to a prep, and potentially the health kickback off the back of this, it is something that I feel should be considered. And it's not something that I was particularly concerned or aware of when I first started my journey as a competitor. I was extremely keen. I'd found this sport, this opportunity to explore what physique development would bring me. I finally found something that you get a direct reward from. And I'm sure if you're listening to this and you bodybuild as a lifestyle or you compete, you'll understand that. You work hard and you get direct reward for that. Everything you put in, you see, okay, my physique is changing. You feel good. And this is what kept me so intrigued, so infused to do my best as a competitor. And I truly believe that being my why is what carried me through when I wasn't able to get a placement, when I didn't get an accolade. I kept going back to stage. That for me has made my own journey have substance. That for me has taught me a lot mentally, and also that I'm able to push physically when things get tough, when challenges arise. And I speak about this on the podcast. In pretty much every prep, there's been something that's a pretty big challenge. And when I look back and I realize, okay, I made it to stage when X happened. For me, that's an internal hug. It's an internal, okay, this is pretty cool. I was able to withstand the challenges that I faced during those preps. And when I say challenges, some of them are pretty big. So for me, it seems to be around 4 to 6 weeks out, something seems to occur, particularly in my last 4 preps. I've broken my arm. I've fractured my ankle. I've had a really quite bad nerve damage injury to my arm. That was in my last prep. And I've lost my granddad, who was my dad, my father figure, from the age of 5. That was extremely tough. But the reason I'm mentioning these is the mental fortitude you can gain from being a competitor is pretty phenomenal. It gives you purpose, but it also gives you something that allows you to, when something out of your control happens, you find this focus, you find this drive to continue excelling and continue sticking to your plan. Now, by no means am I saying if this happens to you and you're in a prep that you can continue that prep, because I know people that have had a close family member die and they've needed to pull out of a prep. And you know, again, on that note, this is not me saying that I'm better than someone that's pulled out of a prep because they've had a challenge come up and they've come away from that prep. But this is an opportunity to share my experiences and my journey, which is individual to me. And when I talk about these challenges, that then feeds into how I was able to keep going and finding that strong why. It's certainly something that I dig down on with clients, and it's certainly something that I continue to think about myself. What is my why? Why am I wanting to do an extreme diet to get to stage? Why am I constantly in a phase where I'm pushing and pulling my body weight, where I'm monitoring my physique, where I'm checking in every week? Why am I doing things every single day to contribute to improving my physique with whatever phase that is? And when I go right back to the start, when I was this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed competitor or starting that competitor journey, it was like, wow, this is an opportunity to excel. This is an opportunity to defy the odds. Someone that has no sporting background, that has pretty shit genetics, someone that knew nothing about nutrition or training. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. Could I turn into a bodybuilder? And actually, until I won a show, I would shy away from telling people that I compete. So people around me would know that I'm a bodybuilder, right? I eat out of Tupperwares, I do steps, I train regularly, all those things that are telltale signs of being a bodybuilder. But if people ask me if I did competitions, I remember so many conversations back then where I wouldn't want to talk about it, or I'd say, yeah, I compete, and then I'd change the subject or get away from the conversation because I didn't feel I'd earned the right to call myself a competitor. Now, again, that's a very solo thing. That's an internal job for me. And I do believe that was probably stemming from my background of not knowing much about this sport, but also really being in that mindset of this is a choice. And I feel lucky every single day to be in this lifestyle, to be in this realm. And when I did my first show, the first motivation I had, which was within my why, I wanted to see if I could get a six pack. When I saw my six pack, let me tell you, that was enough for me. Yes, of course, you go into competition to win. That's the whole point, right? But I had my own personal goal of, did I even have a six pack? Could I get a six pack? And I remember there's a shot I've got where I pulled up my top when I had my tan on and I looked down and then I looked in the mirror and it was like, wow, I've done this. I've achieved this through my own hard work, from adhering to a plan, from working on a coach, from investing in a coach, investing in this journey. You know, it's not a cheap sport, but I made it work. There was no other option. To me, the need for a coach is massive. I've always called it a utility bill. It's like, it's part of my bills. It's part of my rent, my water bill. I would rather sacrifice going clothes shopping or going out or whatever it is that's classed as like hobbies to afford a coach and to afford to be able to compete, because of course you've got the cost of the show, the tan, makeup, hair, all of those things, and of course your bikini. So that first goal was achieved. Those first couple of seasons, I personally felt like I didn't get looked at. Now, when I look back, I understand why. I wasn't competitive. I did not have a competitive physique. Now, when we go back to my background of no sporting, of not great genetics, I didn't have any muscle. The first couple of preps, it pretty much just took me down to, well, I want to say skin and bone, but I did have a six pack. But I was very, very lean, but I didn't have any muscle. Now, what is bodybuilding based on? It's symmetry, it's proportions, it's muscle mass, it's definition. And then, of course, it's your stage performance. And for the bikini category, your hair and makeup as well. Now, some of those things I did not have. So presenting that physique to the judges, I wasn't going to place because I wasn't competitive. However, at the time, although that first competition, I was so chuffed with my achievement and even stepping on stage, because I didn't even know if that would be possible. Those days leading after the show, very, very tough. You go through, could I have done better? Could I have performed better? Could I have posed better? Is there anything in my prep that I could have done more of? Could I have, excelled in other ways? And you go through those thoughts and feelings. Now, right back then and all the way through until my last prep, what I want to tie this into, which is the title of this podcast, did winning Miss Universe change my life? What I soon realized after that first competition way back when I started out, was I was not happy in my life. So bodybuilding came into my life at a very good time. And that's why I often say it saved me, because what it did was it masked my unhappiness in the rest of my life, particularly in the relationship I was in, and that went into being married. And what it did was it allowed me to separate myself from who was my partner, into my husband at the time. It allowed me to make excuses to not spend time at home and with him. It allowed me to feel like I had a completely different life to him. And because he didn't bodybuild as well, it also offered me an excuse to go, well, I need to do my bodybuilding. So the divide grew. Now, the dark places that I visited over those first few seasons after the shows, from not placing, from wondering if I could do more, was it me? Was I cut out for bodybuilding? That was alone. I was solo here. But throughout those preps and those dark places after the shows, I was forced into different ways of thinking. And throughout all of those preps, it got worse and worse, that I was so unhappy. But by doing back-to-back preps, I continued to mask this. Now, when I got to my third season, it was the first time I placed. So I got 6th place. So back then when you competed, they awarded the top 6. Now, I'm aware, of course, not all federations do that now. It can often be 6, 5, or the top 3 only. Now, when I got that 6th place, wow, what a difference that felt to my journey and my substance and my earning the right to be a competitor. I was so chuffed. Now, of course, you don't win an accolade per se. You get your participation medal. But to even be in the top 6 out of a lot of girls back then in the UK BFF era, sometimes there was 25, 30 girls. To me, that was big. So that then fueled my next off season, because what I'd done over the 2 off seasons previous that took me to that 3rd season was work on building muscle. Now, as a natural athlete, that was hard because my off seasons were pretty short. And it wasn't until I committed to a longer off season, which was 10 months, where I really started to gain some muscle. And this came after placing 6th place. So I did a 10-month off season. I pushed up to an uncomfortable spot, which for me was always that real fucker. It was tough to push up for me. I like being lean. I like the purpose prep brings. I like the timeline. I like the structure. I like digging into a deficit. I like discomfort in that. What was always hard with this was the discomfort that came from pushing up and, of course, accruing body fat alongside hoping to build quality muscle tissue. But getting 6th place, I was fueled. I wanted more. I wanted to experience that again, placing, doing well at a competition. So the 10-month off season was my best off season throughout my competing time so far. At this point, I am 12 months into my growth phase, knowing that I need to spend longer here to gain that quality muscle tissue. But I'll always remember that 10 months of being my best yet, because I was very driven and I'd experienced what it was to get closer to winning a top 3 spot. So Off season was completed. Now, because I did push up, I needed a longer prep. So my prep was, well, when I started out, it was October to the April. So the competition was in the April, and that was fine. You know, I prepped over Christmas. Not a box was not left unticked. I prepped throughout Christmas, and the competition was 11 days after my 30th birthday. So I prepped through that as well. Now, prepping through Christmas, prepping through a birthday, for me, it's not a problem. If I'm in a prep and I'm committed and I'm that driven and my why is strong enough, nothing will get in my way. Again, something that I feel makes a competitor is being able to adhere to a plan, of course, but also to prioritize a prep. So if you're going into a prep and it's going to be 6 months, looking at your calendar and saying, that's me for 6 months. My coach is my Bible. My focus is prep. I will not be derailed. There's nothing that can get in my way in regards to social occasions or temptation to go off plan. This is what I feel does breed that success and also ties into your stage performance. If you slip up in a prep, if you hit the fuck it button and you go out for a social occasion, or you eat out, or you eat off plan, when you stand on stage, if you are a proud competitor, and this means everything that you tell everyone it means to you, then there isn't room to give in to temptation in my mind. And that's why I'll always put across the importance of clearing the timeline and reverse engineering from the show, making sure that you're able to clear that space and commit fully. So, like I say, 11 days out from my show, it was my 30th birthday. And with society, you could easily say a 30th birthday is a milestone. But I remember it very, very well when I got asked what I wanted for my birthday, what gift did I want for my birthday? My response was, winning a bodybuilding show is the biggest gift I could ever receive. I don't want anything else. I don't want fucking clothes. I don't want shit. I want to win a bodybuilding show. So if you would like to get me something nice, or, you know, something that contributes to bodybuilding, some protein powder or whatever that may be, or you can come and watch my show and support me, that is enough. Materialistic gifts were not cutting it. I wanted to win a bodybuilding show. So the focus was in. Now, that show, I remember it well. And this is what I talk to competitors about. Staying in your own lane. So that prep was nailed. I did everything in my power to arrive to that day. And I remember the night before, I was at tanning, hoodie on, hood up, headphones in, baggy clothes on. I'm there to compete. This is not for anybody else. This is for me. I'm not going there dressed up with makeup and hair done. I couldn't give a shit who's there and who sees me. I'm in my own lane. I don't need to look at anyone else's physiques. I don't need to look at anything other than myself and focusing on my own physique, because that is all I have control of. Chilled vibes to the max. The night before a show, throughout peak week, we are Zen mode, because this is what we need. We need stress in check. We need cortisol down. What we need to do is save energy for the performance. It's no good me spending time, hours and hours, looking nice to go and have a tan done, because that doesn't count to anything. What counts is what I look like on the day and the energy I have to do my best on that stage. I'm there to compete. So I'm there, I'm listening to grime and I'm in a car park waiting for my tan. Have my tan, go home, do, have my oats in bed, have, you know, the the night before a show protocol in place. Sleep as best you can. Of course, it is affected in a prep for a lot of us. And I wake up on the show morning. I do my normal, put my headphones in and listen to my Denzel Washington speech. And actually, I released a podcast not long ago, Your Show Day Pep Talk. And that was derived from what I do. My routine on show morning is listening to this speech full forward. This holds a lot of relevance to me. So the speech is actually based around his journey as an actor and his journey from someone telling him at a young age, you're going to travel the world and you're going to talk to many people. And that's what he's done. He spoke to many people through his films. But what he always said, and the undercurrent was, do not be scared to fail. If you fail, fall forward. And that is what I feel I've always done. Look failure in the eye, thrive on failure, and fucking go for it. What is the worst that can happen? And what I always say is, when you compete, what's the worst that can happen? You stack it in your heels, you look like a tit for a moment, but you stand up and you own it. Because actually, when we fall forward, when we look at this constructively, we have brought attention to us, and then we stand up and we do our poses and we rock and own the stage. It's never happened to me, but I've always said, if it does, fuck it. I'm still there to compete. It can happen. But in my mind, that's one of the worst things that could ever happen when you're actually on the stage. Now, of course, when we relate that back to peaking, keeping stress low, all of the things that affect a physique, sticking to your plan, making sure you prepare, making sure you travel there with enough time. For this show, I even, a few months before, went and stayed at the hotel I was staying at that night to give it a recce, to ensure the bed was comfortable, ensure the surroundings were nice, that I felt at home, I felt good. I paid above the odds for a spa resort because, like I say, I'll find the money if I need to. And at that time, trusting me when I say I was not earning very much money, but it's important to me to, if I want to win a show, and that was my intention, I will do everything in my fucking power to win a show. So that goes back into the preparation and planning. So I knew where I was staying. I recce'd out the venue when I went up there. Everything was set. So I go there on show day. And what I'd actually learned is something that I'd like to share. The art of manifestation and visualizing what you want to achieve. So I did this with a client, a PT client back in the day, and he did a degree in psychology. And the exercise was, he got me to stand with my eyes closed. We were in a park and he was in front of me. And he said, I want you to have your eyes closed and walk forward towards me and visualize, hear, and recreate what it is you want to achieve. So I walked forward. I imagined lifting the winner's trophy. I heard everyone shouting. I heard my mum shouting my name. I felt the audience. I felt the lights of the stage. I felt the judges look at me and give me that first place spot. I then continued that manifestation every night. And this was months out from the show. Every night I closed my eyes. I visualized, I felt what it would be to win a bodybuilding show. And that, it brings tears to my eyes now. And it did many, many times. What that meant to me to win a bodybuilding show is hard to put into words. And when I did win that show, I remember doing my comparisons, doing my eye walk. I felt like I'd won. I felt like I'd won because I'd played that out in my mind so many times. I'd felt it. I went there that day with the looking failure in the eye, with the pride of the 4th season complete and being on that stage. And I was not there to fuck around. I wanted to win. When they called out my name, when they went through as they do, the 3rd place, the 2nd place, the 1st place, I broke down. I was on the floor on my knees crying and I couldn't, it was hard to get up. Everything I'd poured into 4 preps, everything I'd withstood, my granddad passing, like I say, having so many challenges post-show, being in this dark, dark place, questioning my identity, questioning, should I even be on this earth? And then my name, first place. And I remember they called out my name and they said, you can see what this means to her. And you could. It was so internal. It was, everything went through my mind. And that then unleashed me as a competitor, a competitive bodybuilder. And I'll never, ever forget that day. That day is in my heart, as is UKUP. I'd tasted gold and I didn't want it to stop. So then I went on to peaking for a second show that year. And this was with the same federation. This was another qualifier for the finals. So I remember a conversation with my coach, Stephen, at the time. And he said to me, you don't need to do this show. It was 3 weeks later, because it's another qualifier. It's with the same federation. You've already qualified for the finals. So he said to me, 3 weeks of peaking back to back is going to be fucking hard. And I was like, nah, it's cool. You know, I'd done all of my preps. I'd done one show, right? So I was hyped and I was like, well, I'm lean. I can carry this on. This is cool. I've got this. Well, let me tell you, those 3 weeks peaking back to back was a shock. It was hard, so hard. And what it was hard to fight was the fatigue, because you're running that deficit. There's no time. You know, I didn't have time to take my foot off the gas. But this show was at Body Power, the iconic Body Power, which is no longer. And I'm so glad I did it, because it is no longer. But also, I wanted to step on stage at Body Power. Like, for me, this was a very good opportunity to do something quite iconic for myself. So I got there and I came second. Now, I'll always say this was one of my best lessons as a competitor. Coming first and then coming second directly after that, it taught me you never have control over winning. Just because you've won once, that does not mean you're going to win every show. So does this become a fall from fame? Does this become a point where you give up and you think, oh, this was shit. I won that last show. Why have I come second? No, it keeps you falling forward. It fuels that fire to continue pushing on. And what was great about this, the person that got first place, she had a sick physique. So it inspired me and I competed at Body Power. I also had the chance to mix with some of the pros and it was pretty cool. Again, it was like, wow, imagine being a pro. Could I get a pro card? Little old me from Bognor Regis? Well, who knows? So I then did a secret show a week later. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to, because this was for me. Now, traveled to the show and open mind, wanted to see a different federation, explore that, give it a go. And this was NFM UK. So NFM, I thought, let's give it a go. There was a show a week after Body Power. Now, this felt like a very different show for me. It was almost like a casino place. It was like a proper, like a show, a performance. They have everything catered for, the glitz, the glam, the changing rooms. It was quite an experience. It was very different to what I'd experienced before with bodybuilding, with UKUP, with UKBFF. So I came second at that show, and I started walking off the stage and they called me back and they said to me, it was so close and we want to offer you a pro card and we want to offer you to come back and compete as a pro. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm a pro with NFM UK. Whoa, this is wow. So I went back and I competed as a pro, and they only awarded the top 3, which I didn't get. So I competed with NFM UK and I got a pro card. This turned out to be the longest prep I've ever done. In its entirety, it was 13 months. So between the NFM UK show and then doing the UK-UP British finals. It was May, and that took me through to October. So I had a bit of time at maintenance, but trust me when I say it's not enough to refresh you and make you feel good. You feel better, but you don't feel good, as it were. Training is at maintenance, food is at maintenance, and you're pretty much riding it out. You're riding the waves, and it's a long space of time. So I had 3 months at maintenance throughout summer, no social occasions, nothing that took me off plan. And then I went back into a deficit for the finals. And I said earlier that it's always about 4 to 6 weeks out. Now, for the British finals, I've never spoken about this on the pod. The day before, I came down with a bad sickness bug. I was in so much pain. It was pretty bad, but there was no chance that I was not going to the British finals. No chance. So my mum went and got me some supplies. I ended up having to have some gluten-free bread just to get something in me, and some jam for my carbohydrates for my peak. I ate the protein, but you'll know if you've got a sickness bug, eating chicken is not ideal. Had the sodium going in, not ideal. The micronutrients were easy to digest micronutrients, so bananas. And the peak wasn't the plan that we originally had in place, but we made it work. I was able to get some rice down me, etc. I then, on the way to the show, got stuck in a traffic jam. Took me 7 hours to get to York from Bognor Regis. My feet were raised on the dashboard. It was hell, but I got there. The night before the show, I just had to do what I could to recover from the car journey, the illness. The morning of the show, I'll always remember this. So many people messaged me, and because I'd won a gold and I now had 2 pro cards, bring back the gold. You'll win this show. All of these types of messages, it all came in, and I remember sitting there, my mum, my stepdad, and Kieran, my husband at the time, all eating there, all you can eat breakfast, me there, eating my normal bodybuilding food. Whether or not I should have sat there while they were eating that, I don't know, but hey ho. And it hit me. It fucking hit me like a ton of bricks. I broke down crying, uncontrollably crying, because this pressure was so much, so much. And I was there to win, but I wanted to do it for myself. And let me give you this message. And this is why I don't tell people good luck. I don't tell people you're going to win, because we're part of a subjective sport, and it does not help the athlete, in my experience. I know what that feels like. What we should be doing is supporting someone for what they've achieved, asking them how they feel if it's appropriate, telling them you've got to stage, what happens is out of your control. You bring your best physique to the stage and you enjoy your day, not riddling people with anxiety and pressure that they have to win or place to validate what they've achieved and what challenges they may have faced that you may not be aware of, what they've done to get to stage. So the next time you tell someone good luck, and this is my personal opinion, think about that. Does someone need luck when they've put their life into a prep? Or do they need you to say, enjoy your day, enjoy the stage, exhibit your hard work? It's a question that I'm asking you and for you to think about. Now, I went on to win the UK-UP British finals, and this was my most competitive lineup yet. There was a lot of girls there, of course, from regionals throughout the whole year, and I was awarded first place. Wow, the British finals. What an experience. And I went to those finals with that looking failure in the face. Whatever would be, would be. I'd got there. I'd done everything in my power. It had been a long prep already. And I exceeded my expectations fully. It was incredible. And I earned my pro card at that show. And this was a phenomenal achievement to win a second pro card at the UK-UP British finals. To win a pro card at the finals felt amazing. It was, yeah, it was a day again that I'll remember for the rest of my life. So after this show, I had the opportunity to do one more show, and it was the Rhinos, which is an independent show miles from me. And I thought, you know what? I'm rounding off this long prep with another show. I've been to some posing lessons there. I've been recommended to do this show because there was potential to qualify for an international invite. Now, did I think that I would win an international invite? I don't know. But I was willing to give it a try. So I went to this show. I knew that I could be invited to Miss Universe. Now, I can't tell you what that meant to me. Imagine it, competing in Mexico at Miss Universe. Whoa. So I compete at Rhinos. This then was a level up from the finals. This show was phenomenal. The athlete standard, the bar raised, so competitive. But I walked out on that stage. I'd earned the right to call myself a competitor, and I was not there again to fuck around. I wanted to win, and I was there to fight. Now, I was on stage for 45 minutes, and I was in every call out. That was a lot of mandatory turns. This is where I say it was competitive. We were worked to the bone because it was hard for them to decide the winner and even the top three. There was 1 point between me and the second place. When I won that show, by God, as if it couldn't get any more emotional, I had it in my mind. If I won, I would qualify for Miss Universe. And I qualified for Miss Universe. Now, what happened there? Once I checked if I'd qualified, Nick, the organizer of the show, said, yes, you've qualified. But it's in 1 week. And I was like, I will move hell on earth to get to Mexico. Can I take the invite? So he sent the emails and it was confirmed. I can represent Team GB for WABA GB. So the expenses weren't covered. I needed to find the money for the flight. I also realized I didn't have a valid passport. So on the Tuesday, I went up to London. I got a passport. On the Wednesday, I flew to Mexico. I was an international athlete. Wow. The whole experience blew my mind. Being part of a team, flying internationally and representing your country, this was an absolute dream come true, a dream that I never thought possible. And this was all because I fell forward. I looked failure in the face and I put the work in. Day in, day out, I was focused and I did not let anything stop me. And what an experience, like I say. I competed. I won my bikini category. I won Miss Universe. I then went on to the pro show. I qualified as a pro for WABA on that day. And I came fourth in the pro show as well. I missed out by 1 point of coming third for the pro show for WABA in Mexico. And this was such an experience. And the question I asked at the start, the label of this podcast, did winning Miss Universe change my life? And here comes that spin. It gave me validation like it did when I won my first show. But winning my first show, that experience tops all of my shows because that's where I became a competitor. But did it change my life? And the true answer is no, it didn't change my life because I was the same person when I woke up that next morning. I was still incredibly unhappy. I still had elements of not feeling good enough because I looked at other athletes when I was exposed to the international vibe and the international standard, other countries, other competitors, very, very different to the UK. The attitude, the environment, the teams being there from all over the world, it was a different vibe. Suddenly, I had 3 pro cards. I was competing as a pro, and I was back at the bottom of the pile. I'd won a show, my first show, and then suddenly I'm a pro, and I'm back at the bottom. because the pros that have been competing for years, the genetic freaks that look fucking phenomenal, wow, suddenly I'm back there at the bottom and I'm aiming for so much more of a higher standard if I'm going into the pro league, combined with the unhappiness in my personal life. And the reason for this podcast today, the sole purpose is to share more of my journey and the accolades I've got, but it's also to share that if you're unhappy in your life and bodybuilding is masking that, no accolades, in my opinion, will take that away and make it better. When you win a show, you wake up the next day, you're still that person. You're still that lonely, upset, anxious person inside. Yes, you have validation from an accolade and from competing, but it does not take away from what's going on inside here. And in my experience, until I owned that, until I took the journey to finding what true happiness was for me, no accolades were able to fulfill me in the way that true happiness does. And I'm going to end it there today with a message to anyone that's struggling, to anyone that has not placed, that has not won and had their heart set on that gold trophy. There is hope. There is substance in your own individual journey. And I'm living proof that if you keep falling forward, if you keep looking failure in the face, you can achieve many, many things in life.